Welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us for today's episode of Canal Days. As always, I'm your host Carrie, along with my co-host, founder of Historical Tours of Greater Holyoke, Robert Camus. Our Canal Day series delves into the vast collection of historical sites throughout Massachusetts, with Robert's expertise of the local history as our personal guide. Each episode, we uncover history throughout local communities, highlighting the historic landmarks and uncovering their seminal significance. Today's episode of Canal Days will be introducing and canvassing the historical house and former owner, Lewis Smith. Reveal to us who Lewis Smith is and what he's known for.
He is a Revolutionary War veteran that settled into the area. Smith's Ferry was not called that. It was called the Mountain Division of Northampton around the time he settled there. And he was settled into the middle portion of that. It's a portion that's very close to the Connecticut River. And he had just got married, and he would have with his wife 11 children. And these children would some stay around the area and develop it, and this was the reason why they would be named after this family, Smith's Ferry, at some point. There was a ferry there long before the Smith's Ferry family took it over, and long after they left. But that was a good name to have because the Smith family gave so much to this area and did a lot for the area. So Lewis Smith had been born out in Berkshire County, and he had come in to this Northampton, served in the war, and then started up a family. And that house that he lived in was started in 1785, a true colonial house. Now, he would live there until his death in the year 1838. So we're going to talk about his sons, we're going to talk about the house and houses, and who took over along the way. But what a family, and remember, I'm going to give a presentation this year, as a part of the series called The House and Home Through Time. 4th edition this year to be called the Smith Homesteads. And Lewis Smith started it all.
And disclose what his sons did.
And his sons did many things. He had many sons, 7 sons, 4 daughters. One of his sons, Milo Smith, would be a state representative for a very long time. And he would live in the house that was 2 up from him. Another son, Hervey Smith, would be one of the owners of the Smith's Ferry and would be named after the Smith's family. And that ferry he would run for decades and decades. For one year, a few years, his son ran it, Emerson, and then it was sold out of the family finally. But part of the ferry, they had a hut down by the Connecticut River where they serviced the area. The ferry went over to the South Alley side and brought many people over from Mount Holyoke College, for instance. Yes, Mary Lyon did use it at one time. It brought a lot of students over, but it was a very important area because the trolley line from Holyoke to Northampton came right through this area. The train line came right through this area. And the South Hadley Canal had its dam and entrance point right across the river and about only a few hundred yards down to the south from here. So it was very important for transportation at one time. So our wonderful protagonist, Lewis Smith, and his sons did so much for this area. Other sons like David became a farmer. Another son named after the father, Lewis Smith. He died young, but he was also a farmer in the house here. And those are the 5 houses: Lewis, Hervey, Milo, David, Lewis. And even when Lewis left, another of his son took over the house, Charles. So a lot was going on here.
And stick around and we'll be right back after a quick announcement. Are you fascinated by local history and eager to investigate the obscure treasures off the beaten path throughout the state of Massachusetts? or maybe just seeking an unforgettable cultural activity for family and friends to enjoy. Look no further than Historical Tours of Greater Holyoke, founded by Robert Camus. With over a decade of experience, Robert offers captivating tours and presentations of historic sites and landmarks throughout the state. Whether you're interested in canals, cemeteries, charming churches, or more, Robert's tours provide a unique and enriching experience for all. And that's not it. You can also schedule private tours tailored to your interests, ensuring a personalized adventure and unforgettable memories. Perfect for families or groups of all sizes, making for an exciting hands-on learning experience that brings history to life. Simply visit holyokecanaltour.org or email bobcat4214, capital B, @yahoo.com to book your private tour today. So getting back to our episode on Lewis Smith, clarify for us, are the houses still there today?
I think the 5 homes are still there, but I'm not positive. The one that I'm most certain about are the 3 towards the northernmost points. So the former Milo Smith house, David Smith and Lewis Smith house. They will have an old-time colonial look to them. I'm sure the one owned by Milo has been changed a bit, has aluminum sided on it. But another 2 is to the north, very colonial look to them, probably made around the 1830s or 1820s on the northernmost one. Now, the southernmost 2, the oldest one would have been a 1785 colonial house owned by Lewis Smith himself. Another home was built on that property at some point. So, and it was owned by the family that lived on the property. So they had 2 houses. And I don't know which one at this point is the old one and which one's the new one, or if they're both still there. Now, Hervey Smith's home is quite possibly the original. And it looks very old. And if so, that'd be great. So the ferry owner's house is still there. Very hard to tell, but I'm going to keep working on it. And when I give the presentation in November, I'll have a lot better answers for you.
And do you know who took over his houses?
All right, so that major house, which was the Lewis Smith house, we're going to talk about that one. So Lewis Smith owned it from 1785 to 1838 when he died. And he gave it to his son, Charles Smith, who owned it from 1838 to 1893. So the Smith family owned it for 108 years before it finally moved out of the hands of the Smith family. And through that time, sure, lots happened to it. Lots of children grew up on that land. The land used to go all the way to the top ridge line of the Mount Tom Range. Apple cider vinegar was made on the land. A nursery for trees was on that land. And then the Briggs family took over. Lyman Briggs, and then later his daughter Clementine Briggs, and later his son-in-law, Joseph Doran, would own the land and the house from 1893 to 1938. So for 45 years, it was the hand of the Briggs family. Lyman Briggs was the right-hand man for Charles Horton, ran a nursery on it with Charles, and then Charles sold it to Lyman Briggs. And so the same business took place, at least in the beginning, of a nursery. Then Clementine Briggs and Joseph Doran changed it into a location where they could sell artwork and antiques. Through nefarious behavior, they had to sell it off in 1938. And the next owner was Edward Schaefer, who owned it for 40 years. He and then his wife. And they turned it into not only a home for him, but also for a Jewish community center, where on it they had a community center for adults, another center for young children, to have a summertime-based recreation center. And this is when it was developed finally into a place where there was a lot of people coming on to it for social activities. And that's how the Catholic Diocese of Springfield got the idea in their heads that they could buy it because a lot of social activities already happened there successfully. And so the Bureau for Exceptional Children took it over under the ownership of the Springfield Catholic Diocese and under a new name, the Jericho, a program name for children that had disabilities of some type of deafness, intellectual abilities, or physical disabilities. A horse program came around, and physically disabled children could learn how to horse ride with the aid of a guide by their side. And they still own it 47 years later. And so this land has quite the history behind it. And I'm going to go through all this during the presentation that I do. So I hope I see you then.
And thank you for listening to our Canal Days episode on Lewis Smith and joining us on our journey through the rich history of the Connecticut River Valley. We hope you enjoyed uncovering some of the hidden overlooked marvels and their fascinating stories that shaped our past and the state of Massachusetts. A special thanks to Robert Camus, founder of Historical Tours of Greater Holyoke, for sharing his passion and expertise with us. Remember, you can find more information about Robert's tours, book private tours, and explore the Canal Days video and podcast series at holyokecanaltour.org. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please like, comment, and share. We'd love to hear your thoughts and suggestions for future episodes. Until next time. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us for today's episode of Canal Days. As always, I'm your host, Carrie, along with my co-host, founder of Historical Tours of Greater Holyoke, Robert Camus. Our Canal Days series delves into the vast collection of historical sites throughout Massachusetts, with Robert's expertise of the local history as our personal guide. Each episode, we uncover history throughout local communities, highlighting the historic landmarks and uncovering their seminal significance. Today's episode of Canal Days will be introducing and canvassing the Jericho program in Holyoke, Massachusetts. So inform us on what the Jericho program consists of.
Its official name is the Bureau for Exceptional Children. It's a program in the city of Holyoke, Massachusetts for children with disabilities of various types, blind, deaf, mute, physically handicapped, intellectual disabilities, so forth. It's a full body program, so it's a big campus, and we're going to talk about that campus today. What it used to be in the long ago past of 200 years ago and 100 years ago, and what the program has been doing through the years. Has it been changing or not? So Jericho is used because the legend in the Bible said that Jericho was a walled city, and the Israelites were ordered by God to march against the Canaanites who inhabit Jericho. And for 6 days they marched around the walls with the priests and the military and the people that were made up the Israelites that were there. And on the seventh day, God ordered them to play their trumpets and make a lot of loud noise. And the walls of Jericho, 25 feet high, started to crack and they tumbled to the ground. And the Israelites were able to conquer the group that was there and take over the city. And they kept it for hundreds of years. So the analogy is that Jericho, the program in Holyoke, is a program that will break down the walls or keeping handicapped people of any type away from succeeding in life to their maximum ability. So they have lots of programs there for them to get them to succeed. It's owned by the Catholic Diocese of Springfield and still is run by them, but through the years they have many volunteers.
And can you illustrate the layout of the land?
The land is right on the base of the Mount Tom Range. The land they own used to go all the way up, but now it only goes up to what's now called the Mount Tom Reservation. But they have trails out back that connect to that trail. And the land is quite gorgeous. I think it's about 15 acres or so, a little more maybe. And on it, you can have horseback riding. Why is that important here? Because you want to have programs where disabled people could get on horseback. And yes, physically disabled children could ride on the back of horses with a guide along their side and learn how to ride a horse and enjoy themselves. Children that are disabled feel freedom on the back of a horse because now they're able to seem like they're moving a lot more free. Instead of being bound in a chair or a wheelchair, they could be on the back of a horse guided along. Wonderful. And all different classes of disabilities could find themselves enjoying this site. The land also has not only stables, but it has a ecumenical center. It has a center for masses. It has a center for the pastor that used to live there. It was a rectory for a while. That was called the Alleluia House and still is. It has a dining area and a community area. So they have about 6 buildings on that site. And lots of trails. What a beautiful campus it is. And it's still open, and after all these decades, they still do very much the same things.
And stick around and we'll be right back after this quick announcement. Are you fascinated by local history and eager to investigate the obscure treasures off the beaten path throughout the state of Massachusetts? Or maybe just seeking an unforgettable cultural activity for family and friends to enjoy? Look no further than Historical Tours of Greater Holyoke, founded by Robert Camus. With over a decade of experience, Robert offers captivating tours and presentations of historic sites and landmarks throughout the state. Whether you're interested in canals, cemeteries, charming churches, or more, Robert's tours provide a unique and enriching experience for all. And that's not it. You can also schedule private tours tailored to your interests, ensuring a personalized adventure and unforgettable memories. That'll last a lifetime. Remember to log on to holyokecanaltour.org for more information and secure your personalized experience today. So getting back to our podcast episode on the Jericho program in Holyoke, Massachusetts. And can you recount what used to be on the land?
The first person to occupy the land was Lewis Smith, and that was in the year 1785 when he got married. And his 11 children were raised on the land. It used to be the colonial house there. That house might still be there and rehabbed into a modern neo-colonial look. If it is, then it's 240 years old. Now, it used to be for him, he mostly did apple cider vinegar, which was a preservative where you could store food for a very long time, especially during the winter. So you could put meat inside of apple cider vinegar, store it, and have it all winter long. It's one way of storing meat and other perishables, including vegetables and fruit. But they also use salt for that, and they also use frozen ice in the basement for that. Now, along the way, it's been changed over, and of course, his son, one of his sons took it over, Charles Horton, and what Charles Horton Smith did was turn it into a nursery for trees and bushes to sell. So his father and he got very rich doing this, and Charles Horton Smith did it, and towards the end, he decided to retire into downtown Holyoke, and he let one of his employees, by the last name of Briggs, take over. And they kept the nursery going. Right? And then after that, it was changed into an antique and art dealer's place. And then it changed over to Jericho. So it had a lot of outdoor uses along the way. I still wonder if the house that we see there is the original, but I'll find out soon.
And so clarify why this specifically is special this year.
Yes, it's 240 years since the land was taken over by Lewis Smith, so it's a bit of an anniversary. But more importantly than that, I give an annual program called A House in Holyoke Through Time. This year it's going to be subtitled The Smith Homesteads, because it's going to cover his land, Lewis Smith, and his house, and all the children. And 4 of his sons made houses on the land going north, each about 150 yards from each other. And so by the 1840s, there were 5 homes in a row owned by the Smith family. All colonial homes, at least 4 of them still there, maybe 5. Quite a wonderful situation you had going. And so I used this to discuss who lived in this house through the years and what they did with the land on it. One of his sons, Milo, became a state representative. Another one of his sons, Hervey Smith, ran the Smith's Ferry for decades and decades. And that's why this land is now called Smith's Ferry. When Northampton owned it, most of the time, they called it the Mountain Division. But towards the end of that period, they changed its name to Smith's Ferry. And so, yes, the 4th annual installation of A House on Land Through Time is going to be about this home on this land, the Smith's Homesteads.
And thanks for listening to Canal Days and our episode on the Jericho program and joining us on our journey through the rich history of the Connecticut River Valley. We hope you enjoyed uncovering some of the hidden and overlooked marvels and their fascinating stories that shaped our past in the state of Massachusetts.
And I hope to see you there this year on my program.
And a special thanks to Robert Camus, founder of the Historical Tours of Greater Holyoke, for sharing his passion and expertise with us. And remember, you can find more information about Robert's tours, book private tours, and explore the Canal Days video and podcast series at holyokecanaltour.org.